Now it's time for our picks. Last week, by some miracle of God, he beat me in the picks. He went 12-4. I went 9-7. Heaven smiles down on everyone sometime. But it won't happen this week. So let's get right into it. KC versus Detroit. Who you got?
Last week, it would have been totally opposite. I would have said Kansas City. After this debacle against the Buffalo Bills, I'm taking Detroit.
I'm taking Detroit. Kansas City, I told you last week, is in disarray. Something's not right with that offense. And now that they lost their stalwart at safety and Eric Berry, he's done for the season, I'm looking at Detroit to win their home opener. Oakland versus Buffalo. Who would have thought this would be a battle of two 1-0 teams?
I'm honestly, I don't know. I honestly am confused by this. The way Ryan Fitzpatrick played last week, I'm going to go with Buffalo.
It's in Buffalo. I think that's the edge. I think it'll be a more competitive game than previously thought, but I think Buffalo will eat this one out. Tampa versus Minnesota. Somebody's coming out of this 0-2.
I'm going to take Minnesota. I think Mike McNabb will get it together. Tampa, I didn't like them playing. If Detroit can pick you apart, then I think McNabb can.
I agree. Detroit did pick them apart, but remember, Calvin Johnson plays for Detroit. That kind of helps with that. Minnesota don't have anybody close to Calvin Johnson. I'm picking Tampa on the road to bounce back. Chicago versus New Orleans.
We got a great defense versus an offense that's going to score high. We saw that in Week 1 against Green Bay. Mike Mark's system can definitely score high as well. I'm going New Orleans away at home.
Chicago versus New Orleans. This game is difficult to pick just because it's about who wins out. Great offense or great defense. Now, Brian Urlacher's mom passed away today, so he may not play. If Brian Urlacher doesn't play, then New Orleans will win. If Urlacher suits up, I'm going to shock you. I'm going with Chicago. Next game we have is Baltimore versus Tennessee.
Is Tennessee even a pro team still? Did we see that last week? I mean, I'm taking Baltimore on fire, what they did to the Steelers. Tennessee doesn't have the defense to deal with Baltimore's new offense. I'm taking Baltimore.
I'm taking Baltimore. I think it'll be a better game than what you think it will be. Chris Johnson is getting back into the speed of the game.
How many yards did he have last week?
He had 24 yards on 9 carries.
How much did he just get paid?
I understand that. It's one game. So, we're both taking Baltimore on that one. Cleveland versus Indy.
You know what? No matter, I think Kerry Collins is going to do better. I'm taking Cleveland. I think Colt McCoy did good last week. I think their defense was unexpected. They thought they were going against Andy Dalton. Gronkowski is a good quarterback, put in good situation. I'm taking Cleveland.
I'm taking Indy. I think Indy's at home. The whole team will want to bounce back. Everybody's going to play better, from the guys on special teams to the offensive line. That team's going to play better. I'm taking Indianapolis at home. Our next game we have is Jacksonville versus the Jets.
We have a low-caliber Tennessee team that Jacksonville can only score 13 points on. I think the Jets are going to win. I think Luke McCown is going to get shut down next week.
I'm taking the Jets. There's too much talent on that Jets team to go against Jacksonville, and the Jets are at home. Look for the Jets to continue winning. Seattle versus Pittsburgh.
Well, Pittsburgh has a lot to prove after last week's debacle. I think they're going to win. Tavares Jackson's going to get benched, if not in this game, by Week 3.
Pittsburgh's going to win because they're going to come out angry, and Mike Tomlin is not going to let that team settle for anything above greatness. So Pittsburgh will come out strong and win this one. Arizona versus Washington.
I'm going with Arizona. It's going to be a close game. It's really going to be a close game. Washington did impress me last week. He beat the New York Giants with a Rex Grossman extra starter. Tim Hightower did look better, as you stated. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm taking Arizona.
Got to go with the Redskins. Kevin Kolb didn't impress me last week. The two big plays he had were on broken coverage. The throw to King down the sideline, coverage was broken. And the throw to Early Doucette, again, was a breakdown in coverage. He didn't do anything that impressed me. And what Carolina showed you is everybody's now is going to try to take away Larry Fitzgerald. Those breakdowns in coverage won't continue to happen week to week. I'm taking Washington. Our next game is Green Bay versus Carolina.
Well, even though he did good last week, I think this is going to be his welcome to the NFL game right here. You got the championship team going against North Carolina. I think Cam Newton's going to get a feel for what it really means to be in the NFL by the Green Bay Packers.
I think the game is going to be closer than what we think. It's Carolina's home opening game. Cam has showed that he's lifted that whole team up. You just look how Steve Smith and those tight ends are playing. A lot of those balls last week were thrown high, and they worked extra hard to get those balls because they believe in Cam. Steve Smith looks rejuvenated. Now, I'm not saying Carolina's winning, but it'll be a close game. Green Bay will take it in the end. Next game we have is Dallas versus San Francisco.
Dallas again has something else to prove. And I mean, you beat maybe the top defense and you almost beat the top defense in the NFL. San Fran, Alex Smith, I'm sorry. You did better than what I thought. Remember, this was 2-0 by his regard. But Dallas is going to win.
When I was younger, this was the game of the year every year. It has fallen way off from that. It's no longer Troy Aikman versus Steve Young. It's a questionable Romo versus Alex Smith, who we question should he even be in the league. But I do think Dallas obviously has more talent, and Dallas should win this game, although on the road. Next game we have is San Diego versus New England.
This is the game of the week, I think, right here. We got Phillip Rivers really having to prove something. Wanted to start off good. He struggled a little bit the first half against Minnesota. Got it together. This is the game. Then we got Tom Brady coming off a stellar career high.
517 yards is impressive.
I honestly, this is a toss-up for me. I'm going to go with New England because they're at home.
I'm going to take San Diego. And the only reason I take San Diego is because I think they'll get that running game going, and the Patriots are still adjusting to going back to the 4-3. So I'm going to take San Diego on the road in a nail-biter. Next game we have is Houston versus Miami.
Miami at home after Monday night last week. I think Houston's in for a rude awakening. They struggled too much against that Indianapolis Colts. I mean, you scored 34 and you were still trying to score and they held you. I believe they are going to lose in Miami. Chad Henne has a lot to prove and follow up to his great game from Monday night.
Miami needs this game more than Houston does, so things don't snowball in Miami. So the fans don't start chanting for the backup quarterback and booing Chad Henne and all that.
Ooh, man, boy.
That being said, I'm picking Houston. I think Houston needs to get off to a fast start, wants to get off to a fast start. Houston will steal this one on the road. Cincinnati versus Denver.
Kyle Orton has a lot to do this week because you have the fans in your ear saying Tebow, Tebow, Tebow. They just made you #1 starter after a big publicity between who's going to be the starter. I think Kyle Orton's going to win this. Andy Dalton is iffy right now. I don't know if he's going to be in week 2. I believe Denver's going to win.
I'm taking Cincinnati only because Denver can't stop the run. And Cedric Benson just got out of prison, but he looks healthy and he's running pretty great. So I'm going with the Bengals. Our last game is Michael Vick. So our last Sunday game is Michael Vick returning to Atlanta as a starter for the first time since leaving Atlanta. Who you got?
I got Philadelphia. You know I'm low on Atlanta's defense, period. And Michael Vick got a lot to prove. You should have kept me is what they're saying. You should have been there for me. You should have supported me. He said, you weren't there for me when I needed you. Now I'm showing you what I can do for a team. Philadelphia's going to win.
Vick's going to have a great, great game. But that defense is not going to stop Michael Turner. Atlanta's almost impossible to beat at home. I'm taking Atlanta at home. And the Monday night game is St. Louis versus the Giants. Who you got?
You know what? The Giants disappointed me greatly last week. It looks like they don't have any of their stuff together. They're playing, they're throwing, anything. Eli throws a great pass, then it all falls down from there. I'm taking St. Louis.
I'm taking the Giants just because Steven Jackson's not playing. So I think the Giants will be able to take this one. So hang around. We have one more segment for you. Stay with us. We'll be right back.